The cool wind whipped through the narrow streets of Brooklyn, carrying with it the distant hum of city life. The towering skyscrapers loomed overhead, casting long shadows over the pavement. Amidst the chaos of the crowded city, one soul was quietly suffering. Her name was Maria, a young woman of 23. Maria lived in the kind of poverty that often went unnoticed in the sprawling metropolis. Every day was a struggle surviving on her meager income from a local cafe, doing what she could to make ends meet. But she was strong, resilient, and determined never to give up. She believed that no matter how hard life got, something better was waiting around the corner. That fateful day, something better was, indeed, waiting for her, though not in the way she had ever imagined. It all started in the early morning, just after sunrise. Maria had finished her shift at the cafe and was making her way home, walking the same path she took every day. She had no idea that today would be the day her life would change forever. As she turned the corner of a busy street, something caught her eye. A sleek, black luxury car skidded out of control, its tires screeching as it swerved toward the sidewalk. Maria froze, instinctively taking a step back. But the car was coming too fast, and before she could react, it slammed into the curb and headed straight toward her. Her heart raced. In that split second, everything seemed to slow down, and she knew there was no way she could escape in time. But just as she was about to brace for impact, a tall figure appeared out of nowhere. A man, dressed in a suit that screamed wealth and power, darted toward her, pushing her out of harm's way. The world seemed to erupt in chaos. The car's front end collided with a nearby street lamp, sending it into a spin. The man and Maria tumbled to the ground together, but they were far enough from the crash site to be safe. The car came to a halt just inches away, smoke rising from the engine as it sputtered to a stop. Maria gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. She quickly turned to the man who had saved her life. He lay beside her, dazed but conscious. His eyes were a piercing blue, his face pale with shock. Despite the chaos of the moment, Maria couldn't help but notice his rugged features, his chiseled jawline, and the way his tousled brown hair framed his face perfectly. He looked like someone who belonged in a movie reel and out of place in this rundown part of the city. "Are you okay?" Maria asked, her voice shaking as she reached out to help him up. He blinked, as if coming out of a trance. "Yeah, I think so, but you saved me." Maria shook her head, looking down at her hands, still trembling from the shock of the near-death experience. "I didn't save you. You saved me. You pushed me out of the way." The man smiled faintly, but there was something in his eyes, something that Maria couldn't quite place. He extended his hand toward her, and she hesitated for a moment before taking it. "I'm Ethan," he said, his voice low and steady, despite the intensity of the situation. "Maria," she replied, still trying to wrap her head around what had just happened. Ethan took a deep breath, clearly still processing everything. His gaze lingered on her for a moment before he stood up, offering her a hand to help her to her feet. "You saved my life," Ethan repeated. And I'll never forget that. From that moment on, the connection between Maria and Ethan grew stronger. The next few weeks passed in a blur, but Ethan made sure to check on Maria regularly. He seemed genuinely concerned for her well-being, often showing up at the cafe where she worked to drop off flowers or small gifts. He took her to dinner at the most expensive restaurants, insisting that she let him repay her in some way for saving his life. Maria, at first, was hesitant. She had grown up in a world where rich people were out of reach, untouchable. But Ethan's kindness was unlike anything she had ever encountered. His genuine interest in her was not just about his life being saved. It was clear to her that he cared for her as a person. As they spent more time together, Maria learned that Ethan was not just any wealthy man. He was a billionaire, the CEO of a technology company that had revolutionized the way people interacted with their devices. He lived in a penthouse apartment, the kind of place Maria could only dream of, with views that stretched across the city like a kingdom. His wealth was beyond her comprehension, yet Ethan never flaunted it. He was humble, grounded, and always interested in hearing about her life, her dreams, her struggles, her hopes. One evening, as they sat in the elegant dining room of his penthouse, Maria felt a sense of warmth and security she had never experienced before. The soft glow of the candles reflected in the windows, and the hum of the city below seemed far away. Ethan, dressed in a tailored suit, looked every bit the billionaire he was, but to Maria, he was just Ethan, the man who had saved her life. "Maria," he began, his voice serious but filled with affection. "I don't know how to say this, but I feel like we reconnected in a way I've never felt with anyone else. You saved my life, but I think you've also saved me in other ways that are harder to explain." Maria's heart raced. She had been feeling the same way, but didn't know how to say it. She had never been in love before, but she could feel it growing between them, a deep bond that neither of them could ignore. "I don't understand, Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why me? I'm just a poor girl. I don't belong in your world." Ethan reached across the table and gently took her hand in his. "Maria, it's not about where we come from, it's about who we are. And who you are, Maria, is everything I've ever wanted. I don't care about the money or the status. All I care about is you." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes as she looked at him, overwhelmed by the emotion in his words. She had always felt invisible, unimportant. But in that moment, sitting across from Ethan, she realized that she was someone worth loving. The months that followed were filled with new experiences, new challenges, and new emotions. Maria's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. She no longer had to worry about how she was going to pay her bills or what she would eat for dinner. Ethan took care of everything, offering her a life of comfort and luxury. But with this newfound life came new responsibilities. Maria found herself caught between two worlds: her old life, where she was just another person in the crowd, and her new life, where she was constantly in the spotlight, surrounded by wealth and power. There were times when she felt overwhelmed, unsure if she belonged in Ethan's world. But no matter how difficult things got, Ethan was always there, supporting her, loving her, reminding her that she was enough just as she was. And as their love story unfolded, Maria realized that their fates had collided for a reason. The poor girl who had saved a billionaire from death had transformed into the woman who had captured his heart, and together they would face whatever challenges life threw at them, united by the extraordinary bond they had forged. For in the end, it wasn't about the money or the status. It was about the love they shared, a love that had been born from a single moment, a moment when fate had intervened and brought them together forever.